Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipsson. Welcome to episode 126 of Sports Management Podcast. If you are a new listener to this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and leave an honest review. That way you help the show grow, and the bigger the show, the bigger the guests. Thank you. Today's guest is Sarah Lewis OBE OLY, a highly respected international sports leader with an extensive network across the Olympic movement and sport industry. Sarah became an Olympian in Alpine Skiing representing Great Britain at the Calgary 1988 Games. From 1998 to 2020, she was Secretary General of the largest international winter sports federation, FIS. Currently, she's running her own company, Sarah Lewis Global Sports Leader, providing services to sport, business, and society. In 2018, Sarah was awarded the Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire on the Queen's New Year's Honours List for services to sport. Get ready to learn how she was the only British skier who didn't live abroad, the importance of multitasking, what it means to Sarah to be an Olympian, receiving an OBE from the late Her Majesty the Queen, the termination of her role as Secretary General, her best advice to young women in sports, and much more. Sarah Lewis, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Hey, Marcus, it's a pleasure to be here. I've heard plenty of your podcasts, and I'm honored to be selected to record with you.
Of course, I'm very excited to have you on the show today. So you are a global sports leader committed to making society better through sports. What does that mean? Well, I've seen so many examples of sport creating positive social change and contributing to the well-being of individuals, of communities, and even of companies, and promoting inclusivity and diversity. You know, on the sports field, we're just all the same. We follow the same rules of sport. There's no difference between us. There's community engagement and development. Sport is an educational tool, really an education for life, teamwork, discipline, perseverance, and plenty of other important life skills. And sport promotes fair play and sportsmanship, environmental sustainability, and much, much more. And I believe from this perspective, sports can play a very important role in really a, non-political way for the good of society. Definitely. And as you said, so many more things, going through adversity, learning how to win, how to lose. I mean, so many things to learn through sports. So how did you get into sports in the first place? I think it just came naturally. As a kid, ever since I can remember, I played sports. I was competitive. I enjoyed sport, and I was pretty good at all the sports that I tried. And that gave me credibility amongst my schoolmates and my contemporaries. When I was a young kid, I did everything, especially playing football. Began at a primary school with the boys. I did judo and table tennis at the local club. When I started junior school, then I did gymnastics in a competitive way. And I always played football and cricket with my dad in the garden. So, sport was just kind of part of what I did all the time. When you were 14 years old, you weren't allowed to play on the boys' team anymore with the football team. So I guess that's something that has developed nowadays when women's soccer is becoming bigger. Yeah, it's very different. I have to say now, fortunately, unfortunately, I used to play football. As a kid, I played on the local boys team. And when it came to being 14 years old, then that was it. There wasn't a girls' organised team in the area. My team, Arsenal, they didn't have the programme that they implemented pretty soon afterwards. And so that's when I transitioned across to skiing and just became a proper Arsenal fan. Yes. So how was that transition into skiing? Because that's the sport that you focused on afterwards and that you became professional and Olympian within.
Yeah, it's not so normal that a kid from London becomes an Olympian in alpine skiing, certainly not back then. But I was lucky enough that we'd gone on family holidays, my brother and I, with my mum, from when I was five or six at Christmas time and Easter time. And yeah, I was already sporty and active and a fit kid, and I took to it as well. And then we went every year actually, and I was spotted by a British ski racing club when I was around 12, and they invited me to join them. And I went on the first training camp with them, and the other kids in the club, they said that I should train with them in England at a dry slope club near London. Well, I hadn't seen or heard of any of these at all, but I did. I joined. It was a club just above the horse racing course at Sandown Park. And there we went along, and I went every Sunday morning and Monday evening. And a few months later, I was selected for the English junior squad. And that's really how it began with skiing and getting my first representative honours, and went from there.
And as you alluded to a little bit, I mean, skiing is not the hugest sport in England. And first of all, you joined the ski club at 12, as you said, but you were also the first English pro skier who didn't live abroad. So you managed to reach, the top level with maybe not top circumstances.
Yeah, we had a very good club. Our club down at Sandown Park, it was very competitive, and of course, I was training with the boys, and on this short slope, 90 meters long, with a big left-hand bend, everyone was very close. And being competitive, then this, really picked up my level for sure, compared to always being the best. I wasn't amongst the boys, but I was pretty close to them. So that meant that when I competed with other girls, that I was definitely right up there. And my clubmate and I, Nigel Smith, we, as it were, led the charge at the national level for skiers who came from England and learnt their ski racing on dry ski slopes. And we were both selected for the British junior team when we were 15, and then the senior team a couple of years later at 18. So skiing actually is extremely popular in England, in the United Kingdom, from a recreational perspective. And now it's getting more and more competitive also for competitions as well. In Scotland, there are mountains. And at the moment, absolutely terrific snow at the start of the season. But coming from the London area, it's easier to go to the Alps, actually, than it is necessarily to go to Scotland.
Yes, I would understand that. And you competed in the Calgary 1988 Winter Olympic Games. So can you tell us a little bit about the road leading up to the Olympic Games 1988?
I was in the national team from when I was 18, and I narrowly missed selection for the 1984 Olympic team in Sarajevo. Finally, they only decided to take one slalom skier on the women's side, and we were neck and neck. But my teammate, she got the nod, and she deserved it, certainly. And well, I just, as it were, tightened my belt and said, I'm going to do this. I'm really going to strive to make the next games. And that's what I did. And I had to find my own pathway to do it. I didn't feel, well, it was clear we didn't have the support within the federation to be able to cover the speed athletes and the technical athletes and the men and the women. There were limited resources. So that's what I did. And I, as it were, found my own program and did a lot of things myself. I went to the United States and trained together with a ski academy there. And I went back and trained with the group that I'd grown up with from the English junior squad. And then I was always alongside the national team and competing in international competitions. And then, yeah, I made it and was selected for the 1988 Games in Calgary.
That's fantastic. So being an Olympian, what has that meant to you?
Well, it had a profound impact on me. I was pretty much overwhelmed by the magnitude of these mythical Olympic Games. But I felt that I grew in stature as a person, living and training alongside Olympic champions and elite athletes, and representing my country in the Olympics gave me a huge sense of purpose, and it very much shaped my outlook on life with a commitment to excellence, that you strive to be the best you can possibly be in whatever you do. And this I felt very much, having seen other Olympians perform in their day-to-day lives as well.
And I mean, it's something that no one can take away from you. I see you're wearing the Olympic pin now. I mean, this is something that will live with you for the rest of your life, and something that you have contributed to your country.
That's right. There's an expression that you are an Olympian. I am an Olympian. It's not I was an Olympic athlete. And so that's something that you have for life. And I certainly wear my OLY badge with a lot of pride. To be one of the elite athletes who's had the opportunity to participate at the very highest level is something that I look back with a great sense of humility as well.
Yeah, I understand. So then you made a transition into the business world, and that's not always easy from being an athlete. Sometimes I've talked to many about, you identify as an athlete. You are Sarah the skier, and then you stop with a professional career, and then who am I now? What am I going to do? So how was that transition like, and getting into the business of sport?
Well, I think, Marcus, I perhaps did it a little bit differently back then. And certainly the route that I took didn't exist, and I kind of had to create it for myself. And so it made the transition quite straightforward. So what, in fact, I did was I left school after classics school in London after I'd completed my statutory education, and I went to a ski academy in France. And this I only stayed at for one semester, one term, because the British junior team said to me that if I wanted to compete internationally, I had to be part of their program. So I returned back to the UK in order to do that, because that is what I wanted to do. And I went to the local ski shop, who I knew pretty well. There aren't so many ski shops where I grew up in London. And they said, well, this is fantastic timing. We've just opened an import and distribution agency. And yes, it would be fantastic to have an apprentice, and we'd be able to support you to go on your training camps and do your competitions and learn the business. And of course, I grabbed it with both hands and jumped in there and really learned by doing. I learned the entire business, the importing, the distribution, the accounting, the reception, the showroom, the unloading lorries, the packing orders, the taking orders, the preparing skis. Really very, very diverse list of things that I learned to do. But basically, it was running the business, and I very much thrived on that. So I was doing that alongside my training and my competitive career up until the time I retired. And then it was very natural transition. And as I had got better and higher up the chain, as it were, as an athlete, I was obviously at the company less and less, but I've been able to raise my own sponsors. Through my role there, I had access to a lot of the different ski companies and other partners that we worked with within the business, and establishing good relationships. So what I did straight after retiring was I set up my own agency, which I call Consultant Ski. So it was public relations and marketing and projects. And I did that for a large number of companies within the industry. I also commentated for Eurosport in their second season onwards, and wrote articles, organized ski courses, and really just did a whole great big variety of things under, as it were, my own consulting company, Consultant Ski. So yes, there wasn't the opportunity to do online education, a sports specific master or other studies online or anything such as that. That didn't exist back in the early 1980s. So really I had to kind of find my own pathway that now exists, as it were, in a more formalized way.
Yeah, you brought up a good point there, that you were being a professional skier and working at the same time, and that you were also the only one on the national team, if I was correct, who did that. So I mean, that takes a lot of determination, but also, you know, structuring your day, and are skills that I'm sure that you have been able to leverage both in your skiing career, but also now in business.
Absolutely, very much, and these are the kind of real life skills that are extremely useful when it comes then to working in business, to everything that I've done since then, and it's something that I hold very much as an attribute, and yeah, proper multitasking, as they say.
Exactly. In the 1990s, you got involved with the International Skiing Federation, and you stayed there for quite some time in different positions. So can you talk a little bit about how you got involved with that, and then your journey for the next 20 plus years with the Ski Federation?
Well, there is a hop between running my own business, Consultant Ski, and getting to the International Ski Federation. And that was the British Ski Federation, as it was known at that time, now GB Snowsport. And basically what had happened was, whilst I was an athlete myself, whilst I was working for the ski importers, I also was helping to manage my original junior English team, doing that on a voluntary basis, of course. And an opportunity came up when the British Ski Federation was informed by the government agency, effectively, that they had to become a professional organisation, and the days of amateurism had to be behind them. And if they were going to receive funding, this is how it has to be. And the Alpine director position came up, and they approached me, and I said, well, you know, it's so exciting what I'm doing now across different businesses, and finally able to actually generate some income. But when my colleagues from the team, who I'd, as it were, just left, when they said to me, hey, come on, Sarah, you know, you said as much as we did that if we had professional management, we could achieve much more as athletes. And now come on, you have to do this. So I put everything in the car and I drove up to Edinburgh, and that's exactly what I did. And so we set up the British Ski Federation on a professional basis, and I ran the Alpine program and did that for 4 years. And yeah, we had 3 men in the top 30 in the world in downhill. We had 2 women in the top 10 in the world in the combined, and built up the basis for a very successful program. And during that time, I'd become aware that, well, in fact, as a national federation, you're a member of the International Federation, and you have the chance to attend their annual meetings, the committees. You can be a member of them, bring up proposals. And all of this was absolutely new information, because, yeah, I was aware of FIS, of the International Ski Federation, just through the FIS calendar. So as I was very much now integrated into the international scene, as the Alpine director, I was attending a lot of the competitions with the team, supporting them on the slope. We didn't have many staff, and so effectively I was contributing very much to their activities, and I got to know the different people involved in the organisation. And the position came up at FIS for the coordinator of the Continental Cup series. That's, as it were, the qualification level to the World Cup, the World Championships, the Olympic Games. They didn't have professional people at that level, and they just introduced professional staff for the World Cup, for the highest level series. And clearly there was a dysfunction between those 2 levels. And yeah, I put my hand up and I said, if you're going to advertise this role, I'd be very interested in applying and contributing. And I was given the position. And after the Lillehammer Games in 1994, at the end of that season, putting everything in place for the British teams for the next period, I got in my car again, packed it all, and went from Scotland to Switzerland and began work as the coordinator for the Continental Cups for Alpine Skiing at FIS.
Is that a dream job for someone involved in skiing to work for the International Ski Federation? Was that like a top goal you had?
I really wasn't aware of it. As I said, I only was aware of the international calendar back when I was an athlete. But then that kind of becomes more in your sphere as you move on and upwards. And after I joined the National Federation, then yes, working internationally was always something that had appealed to me. I had gone and studied in France. And as a youngster, my parents had always tried to expose us to international life. We would go on holidays abroad and rather focus on doing that and having au pairs from different countries abroad to give us an insight into different cultures and to different languages as well. So having then gone on skiing holidays, I think I had thought perhaps I could get into hotel management or working in some way internationally. So it was always on my radar to work internationally.
I understand. And later you was appointed as Secretary General for FIS, a position you held for 20 years. So how was that opportunity and how was those 20 years?
Yeah, well, actually, I was a Continental Cup coordinator a little more than 4 years and had 4.5 successive years of winter. So the Northern Hemisphere, the Southern Hemisphere, with the Continental Cups taking place in Europe, in North America, in the Far East, in South America, in Australia, New Zealand, and I went to them all each season, which was just the most fantastic grounding to then be prepared to take on the role as director and then Secretary General of FIS, because I knew, as it were, the small problems in the big ski nations and the big problems in the small ski nations. And it was very helpful. Got to know so many different people across the world and see the different challenges and different ways that snow sports were part of their society or not part of their society, and how to be able to contribute to make it better. So when the then Secretary General was elected president, he asked if I would take over that role, and that was then formally approved by the council. Initially in 1998 as the director, doing exactly the same as the Secretary General, and then in 2000 at the Congress in Melbourne, then I took over the position officially as the Secretary General, and that was 20 very, very interesting years. In fact, in total, 22 years until that all ended 3 years ago. So it was an exciting period. So many different experiences. Even though you have a certain routine in terms of the World Cup Series, in terms of World Championships every second year, Olympic Winter Games every 4 years, they're so different because you're working with different cultures within the different countries, within the different venues, and with organizers in different countries as well. And so you have to deal with things in a very much a different way. Immerse yourself in their culture. It's not a case of coming in and saying, this is how it has to work internationally. You want every event to have its own identity, to have its own real connection to its heritage. And then perhaps once you gain their trust and their respect, you can make certain efficiencies and improvements, but it does need to be based on their culture. And that's, at the end of the day, why they've been elected to organize major events. So this was tremendously fulfilling and very, very interesting. And I really took a lot of pleasure working to help evolve the sport, also in a lot of non-traditional winter sports nations.
Yes, that was going to be my next question, because as I told you, I work with hockey, and it's also a sport that is mostly, in the northern hemisphere, and it's difficult to get into some regions due to the climate and the weather. And the same, of course, applies to skiing. How did you try to grow the game of skiing when you have these type of hurdles?
Well, yeah, in many different ways. Basically, it's not only necessary to be able to do the sport in your own country, but there is the opportunity to be able to visit other countries and neighboring countries, or even a bit further away, to be able to carry out. But nevertheless, I grew up on a dry ski slope, and there are quite a lot of those now in different parts of the world. And it's a great way to learn the sport. And in fact, many of the dry ski slopes in England, in some of the lowland nations, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, they've now become snow facilities, and they're all year round. And you see a lot of great successes from the athletes from these countries, especially in freestyle and snowboard, free ski and snowboard, because you can train in a very consistent way. And yeah, it's been a huge success in China also, and in the Middle East now too. Additionally, there are other disciplines. As part of the International Ski Federation, there are 6 different Olympic disciplines. So that also includes cross-country skiing, of course, the most popular sport in Scandinavia, ski jumping, Nordic combined, Alpine skiing, which is recreationally across the globe the largest of the sport, freestyle, free ski, and snowboard. So in the different countries, you've got these different specialities. And when it comes to cross-country skiing, for example, roller skiing is quite popular, and roller skiing for training, but also roller skiing as a sport in its own right. For example, in Brazil, roller skiing is extremely popular. In Thailand, it's very popular. In India. So we had such as it were, a broad church. We had so many different opportunities to be able to evolve the sport. It wasn't necessarily only funneling everybody down into alpine skiing, and it must be on snow, and it must be in big mountains. So yes, as you can see, and we put in place a development program in 1998, which was rather a special program because it was established the emerging nations, as it were, the smaller nations who didn't necessarily have their own facilities and significant resources to be able to develop. Now, it was funded through the registration fees for the World Championships. So originally, the candidates for the World Championships were elected by the entire Congress, by the entire membership. But this changed in 1996 when perhaps it wasn't being carried out with the principles that it should have been. And the voting was changed, and that it was only then the council, or otherwise known as executive board in some federations, then elected those organizers. So instead of the candidates spending money traveling to visit 100 or so nations, they would invest that in a non-refundable registration fee that went in to the development program. And this was used then to fund a whole series of activities, training camps, coach workshops, leadership activities, and then perhaps some mentoring and putting together nations with some of the more developed nations to help them, equipment support, and all sorts of various different things, trying to basically help those nations help themselves and see them evolve. And it was a huge success. So more than 50 nations in that program, and it still continues to this day with lots of different activities. So that's been a very, very important part of the growth of the federation.
Yeah, and I love that, to come up with creative ways to grow the sport. And that you said that you have the roller and you have the the indoor facilities. That's fantastic. During your time with the FIS, you were also appointed the Secretary General of the Association of International Winter Sports Association. What is that exactly?
Well, it has, like across sport, a very special acronym, AIOWF, that no one can pronounce, AIOWF. And this is basically the association of all of the international federations in the winter sports disciplines that are part of the Olympic Games. There are 7 members. There's now an 8th federation, which is also on the program of the Games for the Milano Cortina 2026 Games with ski mountaineering. But these 7 federations basically would coordinate various different activities, have common exchanges, viewpoints, for example, on things like WADA regulations and things where there's really a common exchange of views, situations with different organizing committees for the Olympics, and then discussing how you do different things. For example, as part of our development program at FIS, we introduced the World Snow Day and introduced Get Into Snowsport to get kids into sport on a recreational basis. And that's something that we shared with the fellow members as part of the association, and ice skating are now doing it very successfully. So there are lots of different things where you can exchange and support each other for the benefit of winter sports, for the benefit of promoting activities. And yes, on the one side, in certain areas, your competitors for viewing time in the media, your competitors for sponsors. But also, if you want to promote winter sport and sport as such against all sorts of other things that are taking up youngsters' times, then it's good to stick together and good to support each other. So during that period as well, as the Secretary General of the Association, I would be part of the Coordination Commission for the Olympic Winter Games. For the Youth Olympic Games, I was a member of the IOC Programme Commission and representing the winter sports on various different bodies like that. A Sport Accord, which is the international convention, the conference and the exhibition of all international federations, Olympic and non-Olympic. So, I did several of these different roles across, in addition to my role as Secretary General of FIS.
And again, juggling multiple responsibilities, as we talked about before. Either you were skiing and working, and now you're having different roles at the same time. So keeping yourself busy. And also love what you said there with learning from other sports. That was something that I spoke with Petra Serling about as well, that she's talking to Anders Larsson from the Hockey Federation, and they can learn from each other, although they are very different sports. They have similarities, and what can they learn from each other? So I think that's fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. The sport in itself, there's so much we can share and exchange with each other. And that was really also the brainchild of setting up Sport Accord as a body, that all of the international federations would interact with each other. And we came up with the for sport, for the international federations, by the international federations, that we would establish and organize our own convention every year, and I'm really pleased to see that it's going to take place again for the first time in 5 years in 2024.
I want to talk a little bit about, in 2020, your role as Secretary General, it ended quite abruptly. So can you talk a little bit about what happened and how this period was like for you?
Well, yes, of course. I hadn't seen it coming. I hadn't seen the termination of my role as Secretary General of FIS coming. It was 6 months into the COVID lockdown, and I was really absolutely completely focused on ensuring that we could put in place a setup in order that we would be authorized to organize competitions by the national authorities, and most especially the World Championships, which were absolutely crucial for the financial welfare of the organization. And that's where my entire concentration and my focus was. And well, subsequently, I found out that it was connected to the presidential election, which was scheduled. It had been postponed, and it was scheduled for spring 2021. And during a council meeting, which I was asked to leave, and it never happened before. Of course, the meetings are all online at this stage. I was dismissed from my role with immediate effect. Somehow this was to discredit me and weaken my standing for the election if I had been selected or chose to run for it, and which by that time wasn't required to submit applications. I wasn't given the opportunity to, for example, to stand down as Secretary General if I had intended to run for office. And so, that was how my position as Secretary General of FIS came to a rather abrupt end, as you put it.
And how did this affect you emotionally, mentally?
Well, it was very much a shock. It really was. I hadn't expected it. But after a few days, I tightened my belt again, just like when I didn't get selected for the Olympics in 1984, and decided I was going to, get back on the horse and do something with everything that I had learned and the experiences that I had and the energy that I had. And now, well, the handcuffs were off, and I had a chance to really implement so many opportunities that I saw that we had at FIS. And I had an incredible number of people who reached out to me from both within and outside FIS about what had happened. And I was given the opportunity to run for president of FIS by the Belgium Ski Federation. At that stage, it was possible to be proposed by your member association, and I was a member of the Belgium Ski Federation, and so I was able to be their candidate to run for the presidency. So I put in place my manifesto, and we basically got the campaign underway. And I had a fantastic a group of mentors who supported me, and I put in place the social media campaign, and I had a little bit of administrative support with the media, but otherwise I did everything myself, set up a little website, and had an extensive number of meetings. At that stage, we're in the absolute midst of COVID, so it wasn't possible to travel anywhere. And since I wasn't in my position anymore, I certainly wasn't welcome to go to the World Championships and to other events which were taking place where it was actually possible. And fortunately, the system that I've been working on to put in place together with my colleagues and together with members in the federation, in order to be able to carry out events, they worked. The FIS passport was very successful, and they used it for 2 seasons. So competitions were going ahead. But nevertheless, I was able to interact with the different members, the voting members, and various different stakeholders also from FIS over a 6-month period. And of course, in accordance with my multitasking personality, I undertook a further education, and really for the first time since I'd left formal education at 16, I went to the Institute for Management Development in Lausanne. It's the number 3 business school in the world. And it was actually an online course due to COVID, and took the inspirational leadership course, which was absolutely fantastic. And it really was. And I felt it gave me a really super basis to be well equipped to transition, as it were, from the role of being the hands-on Secretary General, the CEO of the organization, to being the leader, to being the president. But when it came to the election, the members made their choice. They didn't elect me. So I have taken another pathway.
Yeah. And at this point, you could have become FIS's first female president. And if that would have happened, what do you think that would have meant for skiing, for women who wants to take a similar path as you have taken?
Well, if I had have been the first female president, I think it would have meant that other women, both within FIS and within different fields, they could also believe that they could strive for leadership positions. You know, FIS was fairly notorious about being a traditional organization, and it wouldn't be seen as an exception. And from a personal perspective, the handcuffs from the regime that we'd had, which were the so-called don't change if it isn't broken model, that they would have been removed. As an organization, I truly believed we had the platform to evolve the governance, to increase the commercial potential, and to further develop the sport on a global basis. And if anyone's interested, the manifesto that I put together, the so-called FIS Peace Map, it's still on my LinkedIn profile and on my website.
Afterwards, you had a very interesting role as a senior strategic advisor for the Chinese winter sports, obviously connected to the Beijing Games.
Yes, that's right. And I think it was just the right thing to do at the right time. It really was, because it was so different. And I'd spent a long time really helping to develop and evolve snow sports in China, and seen the huge potential there when they were elected for the games. Already before, I'd been there for the first time for cross-country long-distance events in 2005. And then when they ran for the Beijing Games, we had continued to develop our activities, first of all with freestyle, where they were very successful, especially with aerials, and then with snowboard and the acrobatic disciplines, of course, with their gymnasts, their divers, their trampolinists, transitioning across to snow sports. And after they were elected, then I was there on a very regular basis and helping them to develop their activities across all of the different snow sport disciplines. And the opportunity came to provide really high level support for the leadership. It was an extremely difficult phase for them because of the COVID situation, the lockdown in China. None of the athletes were able to leave the country for 2 years. And even though the facilities in the country were extremely good for training, indoor facilities as well, when it came to their strong disciplines in freestyle, in free ski, and in snowboard. Nevertheless, for the qualification for the games, in order to earn the necessary points and results for the quota places, it was essential to be able to travel abroad, because the competitions that we plan to organize within China, they weren't possible. So then it became the next problem about being able to travel outside of the country, not only because of the Chinese regulations, but the vaccination, the visas, and so on and so forth. So there was plenty of work to do, very challenging. I definitely learned a new meaning, even in my fairly developed spare no effort. This was very, very intensive work. But it was extremely rewarding and satisfying to work in a totally different culture with different colleagues in a way to achieve, a historic result for the country. China came third in the medals table, which for them was extremely important. The games were carried out successfully. They were carried out safely. The levels of COVID cases were definitely not as bad as they could have been feared. In fact, the games were very much seen as safe games. And for the first time in the history of the country, the number of medals that the athletes achieved in snow sports exceeded those in the ice sports. So yes, it was a success and a most rewarding experience.
I'm sure it was. And I mean, it's an important market. I mean, obviously because of the size, but I mean, we're having, from my end, with ice hockey, you hope that after the games that will have a real impact on participation and to grow the sport in that country. So have you seen, now it hasn't been, too much time afterwards, but have you seen an increase in the interest for skiing or participation in China after the Olympic Games?
Yes, absolutely. There's an event which takes place every year, in fact, since the election of the Games, called the World Winter Sport Expo Beijing, and takes place in the autumn every year. And it's continued to take place post-Games. Last year and this year, the interest across the entire winter sports community, not just in China, but also outside of China, is huge. And it's been extremely successful. The high-speed train that was built for the Games effectively to link Beijing up with the north of the country, which means now it only takes an hour to get up, 50 minutes, in fact, to get up to the north of the country where the Games took place, in the region with the cross-country, the Nordic skiing venues, with the freestyle and snowboard activities too, in Chongli. The train's been booked out all across the winter holidays and from early in the season. And they really have the temperatures up there and natural snowfall in order both to make snow and combine that with the natural snowfall. So the sport is now much better known because of the exposure through the games, the success of the athletes, and therefore there is a good interest in it. And the government has also committed itself to ensuring the continuation of the sport across its next 5-year plan too.
That's fantastic. So fast forward to today, now you're having your own consultancy company. So what do you do on a day-to-day nowadays?
Well, basically got 3 tiers of activity, and I've called the company Sarah Lewis Global Sports Leader. And the first one is advisory services, and I'm presently serving as a senior advisor to an excellent company called Trivandi. It was set up by the senior director of the London 2012 Olympic Games, coming from the venues and infrastructure departments, and just successfully celebrated 10 years. And the company is all about creating venues and events better. And the purpose is continually to improve the delivery and the operations of events and venues, to leave a sustainable legacy, and very importantly, to train local people. And in fact, they've got an exciting few days at the moment. They're in the midst of delivering the operations and the logistics for COP28, which, as you can imagine, is no mean feat. Additionally, I'm doing various presentations, keynotes, workshops, and such like for different companies. And I'm discussing a couple of other interesting advisory roles. The second tier involves a number of non-executive roles, such as Vice President of the Sustainable Mountain Alliance. I'm an advisory board member of Loughborough University London Institute for Sport Business. Women in Sport Tech, and I've seen that you've also done a podcast with the founder, Mary Lou, of Host City Events and Conference in Glasgow, which recently took place. Everything in Sport Conference. I'm an International Relations and Development Commission member for the Global Esports Federation, and contributing to executive education, including as a visiting lecturer of Stockholm Business School, who you're very closely connected with as well, I know, Marcus. Then the third tier basically involves mentoring, notably women in sports and sports leadership, connecting this enormous network that I've got and built up over the years, participating in panels and such like at conferences and sport industry events, and doing cool things like recording a podcast with you.
That's amazing. And again, so many different things. And I'm sure you're keeping very busy. And I need to, say thank you to you for the Stockholm Business School that you put us in contact. And I've had a good conversation with them. So thank you for that. And again, amazing how you can fit all of these things into your daily life. And again, the multitask comes in handy again, I assume.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm always available to have discussions with people who would be interested in services and in connecting.
Something that we haven't mentioned yet, which is a very, very important thing, is that you have been awarded the Officer of the Order of the British Empire. Can you talk a little bit for the people that might not know what that is and why you were awarded this very prestigious award?
Yes, I'm humbled to have received it. You're absolutely right. And after, exactly 20 years serving as Secretary General of FIS, on the 2018 New Year's Honours List, I was recognised by Her Majesty, the late Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, and awarded the Officer of the Order of the British Empire, the OBE, for my services to sport. And later in the year, in 2018, after the winter season, I went to Buckingham Palace and received that honour directly with a number of other honorees on that same day. And it was very touching. I was able to take 2 guests with me, and I could take my then latterly deceased my dad to Buckingham Palace for the ceremony.
Wow. That's incredible. And, again, we talked about being Olympian, that you are an Olympian. I mean, this is the same. This is an honor that it's huge, and something that, 20 years you have served your country and being awarded that. So I'm sure you're very proud, and as you should.
Yes, and again, with great humility, because it's a privilege to have served my country, my sport, and something that why I am so engaged with contributing back to sport now, and to using the experiences and the connections that I have to do so.
There's so much we can talk about. I feel like there need to be, a third and second version of this podcast, because we can go on for a very, very long time. But I have some final questions I would like to cover. The first is, what is your best advice for women who wants to pursue a career in sports?
Go for it. Go for it. Pursue your passion. Don't be afraid to perhaps break some barriers. Sports come a very long way in promoting gender equality on and off the field of play. There's still work to be done. There is, but our perspectives and contributions are essential in shaping the future of sport for everybody. 50% of the population should also have a seat at the table as well. And people like me, we want to help and guide and support women do so. And believe in yourself. Be confident in your abilities, but you need to be prepared to work hard, to get up when you get a knockback, and to go again. And seek out mentors and allies, and demonstrate to them that you deserve their support. And then we'll be willing to help you to achieve your ambitions and guide you on your journey. And you need to be proactive. Go and volunteer for a local club, a local event, and try to really build up your own experience and a network. Yeah, I would say above all, stay true to your values. Believe in what you do in what you believe in. Your dedication, your passion for sport will drive you forward, and they'll inspire others around to help you. Embrace every opportunity, say yes, be open to learning, and don't stop aspiring to achieve your goal to work in sport.
I love that. And I hope the listeners are taking notes. And many of these things, you have showed through your career, overcoming adversity and keep going when you're being knocked down. And now you're a role model, hopefully, to many young women that comes up and see that it is possible. So hopefully we'll see many, many more women in, leadership position in sports in a couple of years.
I hope so. The door is absolutely open for you. There's no question. And there's actually been, I would say, a lot of proactive support from important organizations, notably the IOC, to facilitate and to create networking groups and formal bodies to create such pathways. So capitalize on the opportunities that exist now. They're there for you.
Love it. As I said, there's so much we can talk about, but is there something I haven't asked you yet that you feel is important to mention?
As you said, Marcus, many, many things, but I'm sure your listeners have got a lot of other things to do. And so perhaps they're welcome to contact me directly if there are questions that they have. And I would like to, thank the sports world. I feel privileged to have had a career through and in sport. It's so much more than just a job. The friendships that I've made, the bucket list experiences have been exceptional. And anyone who's wavering perhaps about embarking on a career in sport, or any parents who don't think it's a proper job, believe me, you absolutely won't regret it. And I hope that myself and many of the other people who you've interviewed and you've done episodes with are proof of that, yourself included.
Yes. So if someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them?
LinkedIn is excellent. It's I would say the best way, and feel free to link in and send a message at the same time saying who and what you are and how you'd like to connect.
Perfect. So the final question on this podcast is, who from your network do you think would be a good guest for this podcast?
Marcus, you sent me some difficult questions, but this was by far and away the most difficult one. The problem is not telling you who a good guest is. It's I don't want to upset others to think, oh, I wasn't good enough then. And I would actually like to ask people before I name them. So I haven't had a response yet from a couple of people that I reached out to. So I'm not going to name them yet, but let's just say I've got three different possibilities. One are business founders, two of them, co-founders. The second one is a self-made woman who has really risen up to a fantastic leadership position across different areas of sport. And the third one is from the sustainable space, the Sustainable Mountain Alliance, where I'm vice president. I do feel they've got a great story to tell. So I'll share details with you, and I hope that we'll get a thumbs up from them. There are many amazing guests. Most of them have been heard, or many of them have been heard on other podcasts. So perhaps their story isn't anything new, but I think these ones will perhaps be newcomers for your listeners across any sporting podcast. So that's always nice to give them some exposure to. They deserve it.
I'm sure, and that sounds incredibly exciting. With that, Sarah Lewis, OBE OLY, thank you so much for taking the time to be on Sports Management Podcast.
Tack så mycket, Marcus. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @sportmpodcast.